Hare Krishna. So today we are discussing about fear. What is fear, and what are the major triggers that causes fear, and how to encounter with fear, how to fight with fear. Since fear is the major hindrance in our peaceful and happy life. So we'll be discussing about fear. It's fear is just because we are living only with our mind. When we live on level of our mind only, manaha, then misidentifying ourselves with mm, live wire, then fear arise. This our fear is always about what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next. We are not living in the present. That's what causes the fear, which is always about, which does not have any existence. It's our fear is about non-extant imagination and illusion, etc. It's acknowledged as Maya, or the illusory energy, in our revered Vedic scriptures. So when a person is in Maya, or in the illusion, or in imagination, when he is not living in the present, when a person is living in his mind, then fear arises. Our suffering always is about um, uh, either what happened yesterday or what will happen tomorrow. We are just thinking on that. Our suffering are uh, uh, generally this fear is because of what had happened yesterday, or what will be there in the future, what will happen tomorrow. Our suffering is always about that which does not actually exist, simply because we are not ingrained in reality. This suffering of fear arises, and we are always with our mind, which basically functions as adapter or denier. It adopts or it denies, which is also part of memory and imaginations. Both the imaginations and memory are in one way this hallucination, and because both of them don't exist right now, which is the basis of fear in reality. If we are ingrained in reality, there would be no any types of fear. So fear is, in one sense, can be called as insanity also, because it's just this hallucination of hallucinatory energy, or this energy of mind, or believing uh, in what it does not really exist. What fear does is it puts boundaries around us. We are surrounded by certain boundaries created by our mind, our imagination, or the illusion. It's because of fear that we build boundaries. It's because of fear that we build boundaries all around us for all the time. And if we put boundaries and restrict the area of our life to feel safe, or even we may be safe, but problem is, are we really safe from the common problem of life, like birth, disease, old age, or death? Are we protected from a repeated cycle of birth, disease, old age, and death? If yes, then that's real protection. Else we are just putting these boundaries all around out of fear. Then we should think, looking out of the box, the boundaries we created. So universal trigger of fear is threat of harm. Everyone knows that, which could be like real or maybe imagine also. Like we imagine, today we have to go somewhere, and just we imagined, if I'm going on my two-wheeler or four-wheeler, and if we got accident, if I break my hand or if I lose my leg, what's going to happen next? So that's basically imaginary. In any cases are non-existing. We have like quite famous folktale in Nepal, that there were parents and a daughter, and daughter was like around age of 12, and we know that axe for chopping the woods, that was put above this dining table, hanging there. So that little girl, like 12 years old daughter, was looking that and crying, looking that and crying, and parents trying to get the point, like actually why she is crying, what happened to her, and they are asking her what happened, why you are crying, and she's showing that axe and saying, after I get 20, 22 years old, I'll get married. Parents are saying, yes, you will, obviously. And then I'll go to my husband's house, we'll be there. After a year or 2 years, we'll get a baby. And after getting a baby, maybe I'll come to my maternal house, to my parents. And that time, like, I will be sitting here and he will be serving food like this. And I'll be taking my lunch while putting my baby on this table so I can keep eye on my baby. And that time that axe may fall down and my baby might get killed. So I'm crying out of fear of that axe may fail and my baby may die even. So basically it's like, in general, we have fear of cases, things which are non-existing. It's like trigger of fear, or the threat of harm, are sometimes could be real, like we saw tiger and we are fearful, but generally it's because of imagined. Even we saw tiger, why we need to be fearful? We are fearful thinking that it might attack us. We should be cautious, not fearful. That's basically we don't understand. If the threat is harm, then we should be cautious, and we should try to protect ourselves. But if the threat is not real, it's just imagine, then we generally get that fear. These threats sometimes could be like physical, emotional, spiritual, or psychological well-beings, but this almost all of the times we do observe negative consequences, while there are like these fears we get are for like physical well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, or psychological well-being. But almost all of the times, these fears, because of these fears, we observe negative consequences, while there are certain things that trigger fear is in most of us. Like we can learn to become afraid nearly of anything, I mean anything. And universally there are some common fear triggers, like real environment dangers, or loss of visibility of surrounding due to darkness, like those things, that is real environmental danger. Like sometimes we are just walking and a light went off, so we get a type of fear. It's because of we lost the visibility of surrounding due to darkness, so that causes fear in us. So these are types of environmental dangers. And next is like response to certain specific objects or situations. Somebody is like fearful of height, and somebody is of water, like by seeing the height, water, and even like by immediate response to specific objects like spiders, snakes, etc. And like we are so much fearful of our future, unseen future, especially like socio-economical securities. What will be there in my future if I don't earn, if I lose this, if I lose that, type of like socio-economical securities, a sense of being unprotected. So these are common triggers of fear, like phobia, even there are phobia, and social interaction, and like rejection. Some people are so much, they have that fear of being socially rejected, rejected among family members, rejected among their social or friend cycle. And there's final fear trigger. It's identified by modern psychology or modern health science, mental health science, as an unknown fear. What our Vedic scriptures call it as fear of the death. So among common triggers of fear, the first six we discussed about are like this environmental danger or law caused by like real visibility of surrounding or something like that, or response to certain objects or situations. And future, we have fear of future or phobia, social interaction, and rejections. So these first six arrows are in gross bodily level. It's we can easily see that fear in us. They are in gross level. they can be seen, they can be observed, tested by self-evaluation or psychological counseling, or something like similar type of methods can be used. And it can be treated by repeating exposure to similar situations leads to familiarity. Like by this as an example, which practically we did was, we had one student in our Gurukul. His name is Jagadish Das, and he's like fearful of speed and free fall, like when we are in swing or something like that, and in speed, like we are in motorbike or in anything. So when it's speed or there is like free fall, then he get a certain type of fear, and like we had difficulties with him riding bikes or cars, etc. So we just repeated that exposure to similar situation, which led him to familiarity with that situation, and he overcome his fear. So one can be like treated by repeating exposure to similar situations leads to familiarity. And next is like systematic desensitization. That can be like good, and flooding techniques are there. Coping under the guidance of trained mental health professionals could be there, and other supportive treatments can be we give or get that social support, practice mindfulness, use stress management techniques, etc., etc. So there could be so many. And the last one fear trigger is the death, is in subtle form, which cannot be seen, it cannot be identified, evaluated, or treated by external means. All of us, like all living entity, has this fear, inbuilt fear of death, that we alone are able to tackle this situation. It should be tackled from inside. It cannot be tackled from outside, or it cannot be treated from outside, or it cannot be even identified, so it cannot be evaluated. So all of us should tackle this, because this fear is inbuilt, and we should tackle this from inside. As we know, like more the energy is subtle, more it's powerful. More than this hand grenade, this big hand grenades, those nuclear weapons are more dangerous, and more than that, it's more the energy is in subtle form, so more power it have, so more powerful it is. So fear of death is like in very subtle level, which cannot be identified. So this very powerful, this fear of death. So how to overcome? If it's so powerful and it cannot be identified from outside, it cannot be dealt by outside, it should be dealt inside. So how to overcome it? So that's the biggest question. Fear is not a product of life, as we explained. Fear is product of hallucinatory mind. So it's just product of hallucinatory mind. So we suffer that which does not exist, because we are rooted not in reality but in our mind. So when we are rooted with mind instead of reality, it constantly it's eating up on the past and exerting in the future. So we don't actually know anything about future. We just take the piece of that past and apply makeup on it and think it as a future, because we haven't seen it in the future. So we take something from past, a piece of past, and we put makeup, we just make it as our mind wants and put it in future. I mean, we see it as a future. So we can plan our tomorrow. We should understand this basic principle. We can plan our tomorrow, but we cannot live in our tomorrow. That we should understand. But right now, in general, people are living in tomorrow, and that's why there is fear. When we try to live in that tomorrow which does not exist now, which is a type of illusion, or which is like type of hallucination. And when we try to live in that hallucination or in that illusion, in the Maya, illusion, Maya means to believe in which does not exist. So when we try to live in tomorrow, then there is fear. The only thing we can do about this is come down to reality, learn about the truth and this life and after. What happens? if we just respond to what is there right now, and instead of imagine something that does not exist, place ourselves in the platform of absolute, there is no room for fear. That's basic. I'm just repeating it. If we just respond to the present, if we respond to what is there right now, and instead of imagine something that does not exist, and we place ourselves in the platform of absolute, there is no fear. I mean, there is no any corner for fear. Once we overcome the illusory energy of this uh, illusion, then where's the fear is. So we will not imagine something that does not exist. We'll just respond to what exists right now, and saying goes on, past is history, future is mystery, present is gift, live it. We should live it, this gift. So no, what the hell can after happen after all? I mean, we should just look and see what can happen. At the most we will die, nothing more. At least live before we die, because anyway we will die. So we are not wishing it upon ourselves. We are planning to live for many years, but it may happen or may not. So there is really no security with life. It is full of uncertainty, and it is just a question of how gracefully we, and with how much freedom we live this life, how much we progressed in the path of self-realization. It does matter how near we reached to the absolute. If we have lived the life of quest heading to absolute, it will be worth dying. Otherwise life will be a regret, and death too will be a regret. So to tackle fear, some basic points needed to be thought or practiced as post. So first thing comes eating habits. Fear, it's an energy, and that energy inside us flows through what we eat. So energy cannot be destroyed, as we all know, so it's a universal fact. And all thoughts are energy influenced from our diet, and when our diet is outcome of like meat, terror, flesh, bloodshed, torture, fear, etc., are the genetically modified objects, seeds, foods, then we do have to bear ominous consequences. These foods may mess with this universal intelligence, the core DNA of each seeds and animal. So this DNA contains this inbuilt essence, like primordial essence, which make a plant or animal healthy, happy, and nutritious. But food tempering and modifications, this intensive farming is simply not harmonious. It's ecologically, environmentally, and in the sense of foods nutrition, foods health, and foods happiness, because that's also living entity. So it's not harmonious. And if our food source is not happy, tempered, or full of fear, like we eat meat. So eating meat, how we make meat? It's like while we caught that any animal to make meat, they have that fear inside, and we take that fear as a food, that energy, like our food source. If it's not happy, or if it's tempered, or if it's full of fear, then we too are observing this disharmony and fear, and that same energy is flowing within us, causing us in a type of unknown fear. And next is, its comprehensive lifestyle should be there. To encounter fear, we should analyze and ask. We should ask question to our mind. Analyzing and asking is based on how much we study. So study of inspirational and revealed materials like Vedic scriptures, especially what I personally recommended are Ramayana, Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, etc., helps us mind stimulation. And reading these books helps us to uplift our consciousness in higher dimensional platform, and stops minds to be washed away by the splashes of illusory energy, resulting us to stand on the firm faith of reality. So um, study is first, and then take a blissful sleep from 6 hours, for 6 hours, and get up early, like at least 4 a.m. to uh, take a cold shower, then sit for mantra meditation. It's a prescribed methodology to make our human form of life materially, mentally, spiritually success, and should always be in focus, obviously. Morning time mantra meditation, and it helps us to be focused, elevated, and sharp sighted also. If we want to get elevated and higher platform, or if we want to get sharp sighted, then obviously mantra meditation is the first practice we should be doing. And this next, yoga, like exercises, and the important aspect of a healthy routine, because it helps enhance our mental platform to spiritual, and also burns away toxins. So it's important to choose right exercise for body type and for the season. For that, we should get professional consultant, we should get counseling from professionals, because there are different type of exercise for different types of body and for different types of season. So these things should be there. And finally, there should be a source of ultimate truth, because fear arises due to illusion, and truth can shed light on the darkness of illusory energy. So ignorance is the main cause of fear. When we place ourselves in the light of knowledge, then the fear of darkness disappears. As Vayam Dvitiya, this Vayam means fear. It's in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, it's 11th canto, 2nd chapter, and 37th slok, where it says Bhayad means Bhayam means fear, and Dvitiya means in something seeming to be other than Lord. So अभिनिवेशत स्याद ईषाद अपितस्य विपर्यो स्मृतः, it says. So basically this fear arises when living entity misidentifies himself as a material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of creator. So when the living entity thus turns away from the absolute, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a part and parcel of the supreme. So fear arises. So when living entity turn away from the truth, then it loses its constitutional position, resulting unknown fear in the core of our mind. So death is invincible, as we all know, but fear of death can be overruled if we fix ourselves in the relation with absolute. So we can take an example of mouse and the kitten and a cat. So considering cat as a death is the safest place in whole universe for a kitten. But if we turn our back to the truth, then our position becomes that of a mouse, a rat, for whom the same safest mouth of a cat can be the most danger and most fearful place in the universe. So furthermore, it's explained in same scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter, 7th slok, where it says, it goes like, Yasyambai Srunamanayam Sruyamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktir Utpattate Pumsham Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. So simply by giving oral receptions to Vedic literature, so the feeling of loving devotional service to Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of shoka, lamentation, moha means illusion, and bhaya means fearfulness. So if we just explain in a line, fear arises due to illusion and can be removed by perceiving the absolute. So that is like basic point. If we conclude in a line, fear, it's due to illusion. When we live in illusion, when we live in something that does not exist, when we create some imagination, some illusion, and we live in that, that's fear. And it can be removed just by perceiving the absolute truth. Hare Krishna.